Hey there, future academic superstars. I want you to imagine something with me for a moment. Picture this. You're sitting at your desk staring at a completely blank document. The cursor is just blinking at you mockingly. You've got 3 browser tabs open with different research databases, your notebook is filled with scattered ideas that don't seem to connect, and there's this growing knot in your stomach because your paper is due next week. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so. We've all been there. But what if I told you that there's a way to transform that overwhelming, anxiety-inducing research process into something that actually feels manageable? Maybe even exciting? What if the secret to not just surviving your academic workload but absolutely crushing it wasn't about working harder or pulling more all-nighters, but about working smarter with Hotbot AI as your research partner? Now, before you roll your eyes and think, oh great, another AI hype video, hear me out. I'm not talking about some expensive subscription service that promises the world and delivers disappointment. I'm talking about Hotbot AI, a completely free platform that gives you access to the most powerful AI models available today. We're talking Claude 3, GPT-4, Gemini, DeepSeek, Llama, GLM, and more, all in one intuitive interface without spending a single penny. The platform I'm talking about is Hotbot AI, and over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how it can revolutionize your academic life. We're going to dive into real-world examples, walk through actual research scenarios, and by the end of this video, you'll have a complete toolkit for using Hotbot ethically and effectively in your academic work. But here's the thing. This isn't about replacing your thinking or cutting corners. This is about amplifying your intelligence, streamlining your workflow, and giving you the tools to produce better research faster with Hotbot's comprehensive AI platform. The academic struggle and AMP, Hotbot's solution. Let me start by acknowledging something that every student and researcher knows but rarely talks about openly. Academic work is incredibly challenging, and it's getting more complex every year. The amount of information we're expected to process, analyze, and synthesize is growing exponentially. Think about it. When your professors were students, they might have had access to a few dozen relevant papers for their literature review. Today, a simple search on any research topic can return thousands of potentially relevant sources. I remember talking to a graduate student last month who told me she spent 3 weeks just trying to organize her literature review. 3 weeks! Not analyzing the papers, not writing insights, just trying to figure out which studies were most relevant and how they related to each other. Then there's the writing challenge. Academic writing has its own language, its own rhythm, its own expectations. You need to be precise but not dry, comprehensive but not overwhelming, original but grounded in existing literature. And let's not forget about data analysis. Whether you're working with qualitative interviews, survey responses, or experimental results, extracting meaningful insights from raw data can be incredibly time-consuming and intimidating. But here's where things get interesting. While these challenges have been growing, so has the sophistication of Hotbot AI's capabilities. We're not talking about simple search engines or basic grammar checkers anymore. We're talking about Hotbot's integrated AI systems that can understand context, identify patterns, synthesize information from multiple sources, and even help you think through complex problems step by step using different AI models depending on your needs. The key insight that many students and researchers are missing is this. Hotbot AI isn't meant to replace your critical thinking. It's designed to free up your mental energy so you can focus on the high-level analysis and creative insights that only humans can provide. Imagine if you could delegate the time-consuming tasks, like organizing hundreds of research papers, identifying key themes across multiple studies, or creating initial data visualizations, to Hotbot's AI models, while you focus on the interpretation, the novel connections, and the original arguments that make your research valuable. This isn't science fiction. This capability exists right now through Hotbot AI, and it's available for free. The question isn't whether Hotbot can help with academic research, it's whether you're going to take advantage of this powerful platform or continue struggling with outdated methods. Literature reviews. Hotbot's game-changing approach. Let's dive into the first major way that Hotbot AI can transform your academic workflow. Literature reviews. If you've ever done a literature review, you know it's often the most time-consuming and frustrating part of any research project. Let me paint you a picture of how this typically goes. You start with a research question. Let's say you're studying the impact of remote learning on student engagement. You head over to Google Scholar or your university's database, and you type in some keywords. You get back hundreds or thousands of results. You start clicking through them one by one, reading abstracts, trying to figure out which ones are actually relevant. After a few hours, you have maybe 20 papers that seem promising. You download them all, and then you start reading. Some turn out to be tangentially related at best. Others are duplicates of research you've already found. Before you know it, you have 50 papers in a folder on your desktop, and you can barely remember what half of them were about. This is where Hotbot AI can be an absolute game changer. Instead of this painful manual process, imagine describing your research question to Hotbot's AI models and having them do the heavy lifting of identifying, organizing, and synthesizing relevant literature. Let me show you how this works in practice with Hotbot. You go to hotbot.com, no registration required, completely free, and you have instant access to multiple powerful AI models. You can choose Claude 3 for nuanced analysis, GPT-4 for comprehensive coverage, or Gemini for different perspectives on the same material. But here's the beautiful part. Hotbot lets you try different models and see which one gives you the most useful results for your specific research question. So you start with a prompt like this. I'm researching the impact of remote learning on student engagement during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you help me identify the foundational papers in this area published since 2020 and organize them by methodology and key findings? Within seconds, you get back a structured response that might look something like this. Based on current research, I can organize the literature into several key categories. First, quantitative studies measuring engagement through metrics like attendance, participation, and assignment completion. Major papers in this category include Smith et al. 2021 study of 5,000 students across multiple universities, which found a 23% decrease in active participation during remote learning periods. Already you've saved hours of work, and you have a clear organizational framework for your literature review. But Hotbot doesn't stop there. You can then ask follow-up questions. What are the main methodological debates in this field? Or are there any significant research gaps that haven't been addressed? One of Hotbot's expert bots available through the platform is specifically designed for educational research. This specialized bot has been trained on educational literature and understands the nuances of academic research in this field. You can ask it questions like, what are the key theoretical frameworks being used to study remote learning engagement? And get responses that reference specific theories like community of inquiry theory or social presence theory. Here's something really exciting about Hotbot. You can use different AI models to get different perspectives on the same literature. Claude 3 might emphasize methodological rigor and theoretical frameworks, while GPT-4 might focus more on practical implications and real-world applications. By comparing these different approaches through Hotbot's platform, you get a much richer understanding of your research area. Now, let me address the elephant in the room: accuracy and reliability. You absolutely cannot blindly trust everything that Hotbot tells you about research literature. But here's the thing. Hotbot doesn't need to be perfect to be incredibly valuable. Even if only 80% of its suggestions are spot on, you're still saving massive amounts of time compared to starting from scratch. The key is to use Hotbot as a starting point and organizational tool, not as your final authority. Let Hotbot help you discover and organize relevant literature, identify patterns and themes, and suggest connections you might not have considered. Then use your own expertise to evaluate, verify, and build upon these Hotbot-generated insights. Data analysis, Hotbot as your research partner. Now let's move into territory that often intimidates students and researchers: data analysis. Whether you're working with survey responses, interview transcripts, or experimental results, the process of extracting meaningful insights can be overwhelming, especially if you don't have extensive statistical training. Let me tell you about a psychology student who had conducted interviews with 30 college students about their mental health experiences during the transition back to in-person learning. She had fascinating, rich data, hours of recorded conversations full of insights, but she was completely paralyzed by the analysis process. She'd transcribed all the interviews, which took her weeks, and then she was sitting in the library with highlighters and sticky notes, trying to identify themes and patterns manually. This is where Hotbot AI can transform not just your efficiency but the quality of your analysis. Let me show you how this works in practice using Hotbot's specialized capabilities. For qualitative data analysis, say you have those 30 interview transcripts about mental health and the transition to in-person learning. Instead of manually coding hundreds of pages, you can use Hotbot's AI models to help identify initial themes and patterns. You start by uploading your data to Hotbot. And here's something important about Hotbot. It takes your data privacy seriously. You can safely upload interview transcripts, survey responses, or other research data for analysis through Hotbot's secure platform. Once your data is uploaded, you can ask Hotbot to help identify recurring themes. For example, can you analyze these interview transcripts and identify the main themes related to students' mental health experiences during the transition back to in-person learning? Please also note the emotional tone of different responses and highlight any particularly insightful quotes. Within minutes, you get back an analysis that might identify themes like social readjustment challenges, mentioned by 23 of 30 participants, academic pressure, differences between online and in-person learning, 18 participants, positive aspects of social reconnection, 25 participants, and ongoing anxiety about health and safety, 12 participants. This kind of analysis, which might take weeks to do manually, can be completed in minutes through Hotbot. And because you can try different AI models through Hotbot's platform, you can get multiple perspectives on your data. Now let's talk about quantitative analysis. Here's where Hotbot's math and statistics expert bot becomes incredibly valuable. You can upload your dataset to Hotbot and ask questions like, can you identify correlations between study habits, stress levels, and academic performance in this dataset? Please also suggest appropriate statistical tests and explain what the results mean in practical terms. Hotbot might come back with analysis showing that students who reported higher levels of social connection had significantly lower stress levels, and that this relationship was particularly strong for first-year students. But here's what makes this really powerful. Hotbot doesn't just give you statistical results. It explains what they mean and suggests how you might interpret them in the context of existing research. Hotbot can also suggest appropriate visualizations for your data. Instead of staring at spreadsheets full of numbers, you can ask, what would be the most effective way to visualize the relationship between stress levels and academic performance across different years of study? Hotbot might suggest a scatter plot with different colors for each year and explain why this visualization would be effective for your specific data. But here's something crucial. Hotbot is a tool for analysis, not a replacement for your understanding and interpretation. Hotbot can identify patterns, run statistical tests, and suggest interpretations, but you need to evaluate these suggestions using your knowledge of the field and your critical thinking skills. Think of Hotbot as an incredibly sophisticated research assistant. It can do the computational heavy lifting, organize your data in new ways, and suggest patterns you might not have noticed. But you're still the expert who interprets the meaning, connects the findings to broader theories, and determines what's actually significant for your research questions. Writing support from structure to polish. Let's move into what might be the most immediately practical application of Hotbot for most students and researchers. Writing support. Academic writing requires precision, clarity, proper structure, and a formal tone, while still being engaging and persuasive. For many people, especially those new to academic writing, this can feel like an impossible balance. The most challenging part of any writing project is getting started. You know that moment when you're staring at a blank page, and you have all these ideas swirling around in your head, but you can't figure out how to organize them into a coherent structure? That's where Hotbot AI becomes invaluable. Let's walk through a realistic scenario. Say you've completed your literature review and data analysis for a paper on remote learning and student engagement. You have insights, you have evidence, you have arguments to make, but you're not sure how to structure it all into a compelling academic paper. Here's where Hotbot's writing assistance becomes invaluable. You can start with a prompt like, "I'm writing a research paper on remote learning and student engagement. I've found that social connection is a key factor, and I have both survey data and interview insights. Can you help me create an outline that effectively presents my argument and evidence?" Hotbot's AI might come back with a structured outline that organizes your paper with a clear argument thread, suggesting how to structure your literature review around key themes, how to present your methodology to emphasize your mixed methods approach, and how to organize your results for maximum impact. This kind of structural guidance from Hotbot can save you days of struggling with organization. And because you can access multiple AI models through Hotbot, you can get different perspectives on how to structure your argument. Hotbot can also help you develop your argument progressively. You can paste in a paragraph from your paper and ask Hotbot, "Can you help me improve the logical flow and clarity of this argument? Also, are there any gaps where readers might get confused?" Hotbot can identify places where you've made logical leaps, suggest transitions that make your argument clearer, and point out areas where you might need more explanation. Another incredibly useful feature is help with academic tone and style. You can ask Hotbot to help you revise sentences for better academic style. For instance, you might write, "A lot of students said they really missed hanging out with their classmates." Hotbot might suggest, "A significant proportion of participants reported missing informal social interactions with peers, 85%, now 170. Not only is this more formal and precise, but it also includes the specific evidence that strengthens your claim." Let me talk about something that's particularly valuable for non-native English speakers or students who are new to academic writing: learning academic vocabulary and phrasing through Hotbot. Hotbot's AI can suggest more sophisticated ways to express your ideas while teaching you the conventions of academic discourse. But here's something crucial that many people miss. Hotbot AI can help you develop your own voice, not replace it. You can use Hotbot to experiment with different ways of expressing the same idea, then choose the version that best captures what you want to say. Hotbot can also help with one of the most challenging aspects of academic writing: integrating sources smoothly. Instead of just dropping in quotes or paraphrases, you can use Hotbot to help you create smooth transitions that explain how each source relates to your argument. Let me address the most important ethical consideration: using Hotbot for writing support while maintaining academic integrity. The key distinction is between Hotbot helping you express your ideas more clearly and Hotbot generating ideas for you. When you use Hotbot to improve your sentence structure, suggest transitions, or help you organize your argument, you're still doing the intellectual work. You're providing the ideas, the analysis, and the interpretation. Hotbot is helping you communicate those ideas more effectively. Here's a practical guideline. If you can explain and defend every sentence in your paper, where the ideas came from, why you made certain arguments, how you arrived at your conclusions, then you're using Hotbot appropriately. The goal is to use Hotbot to amplify your thinking and improve your communication, not to replace your thinking. Ethical use and AMP, future-proofing. As we near the end of our journey through Hotbot AI-powered academic research, we need to have a serious conversation about ethics and responsibility. Because here's the reality: Hotbot and similar AI platforms are not going away. They're going to become more powerful and more essential for competitive research. The question isn't whether you should engage with Hotbot AI, it's how you can use this platform responsibly and effectively. Let me start with the fundamental principle that should guide all your Hotbot use in academic work. Hotbot should enhance your thinking, not replace it. Every insight in your research, every argument in your paper, every interpretation of your data should ultimately trace back to your own intellectual work. Hotbot can help you find information, organize ideas, and express thoughts clearly, but the thinking itself must be yours. When you ask Hotbot to help identify themes in your interview data, you're not just accepting whatever themes it suggests. You're using those suggestions as a starting point for your own analysis. You examine the themes, evaluate whether they make sense, consider alternative interpretations, and ultimately make your own decisions about how to categorize and understand your data. Let's talk about transparency and verification. Different institutions are developing different standards for how to acknowledge AI use in academic work. My recommendation is to err on the side of transparency. Keep track of how you've used Hotbot in your research process, and be prepared to disclose this use if required. More importantly, always be transparent with yourself about your Hotbot use. Regularly ask yourself, do I understand this analysis well enough to explain it to someone else? Can I defend this argument based on my own understanding of the evidence? You must always verify Hotbot suggestions, especially when it comes to factual claims, statistical analyses, or interpretations of existing research. When Hotbot identifies themes in your qualitative data, go back and check whether those themes are actually supported by the evidence. When Hotbot references existing studies, look up those studies to make sure they actually say what Hotbot claims they say. This verification process isn't just about catching errors, it's about deepening your own understanding. Even if you spend time verifying Hotbot suggestions, you're still saving enormous amounts of time compared to starting from scratch. Hotbot gives you a sophisticated starting point that would take much longer to develop on your own. Now, let's look ahead to the future. The tools available through Hotbot today are already powerful, but they're going to become much more sophisticated. Future AI tools might be able to automatically track new publications in your field, identify potential collaborators, or even help design studies by suggesting optimal methodologies. But with greater capability comes greater responsibility. As Hotbot becomes more powerful, the temptation to rely on it for fundamental intellectual work will increase. This is why it's crucial to develop good habits now for using Hotbot as a tool rather than a crutch. I want to talk about developing what I call Hotbot literacy, the ability to understand Hotbot's capabilities and limitations, use Hotbot's tools effectively, and maintain intellectual independence while leveraging Hotbot's assistance. This includes understanding when Hotbot is likely to be helpful versus when human judgment is essential. The key is to use Hotbot in ways that make you a better researcher, not a more dependent one. Use Hotbot to free up time for deep thinking and creative analysis. Use Hotbot to explore ideas you might not have considered on your own. But always maintain ownership of your research questions, your interpretations, and your conclusions. We've covered a lot of ground in the past 30 minutes, so let me bring it all together with the key takeaways that can transform your academic work starting today. First, Hotbot AI is not the future of academic research, it's the present. While many students are still struggling with traditional research methods, others are leveraging Hotbot's powerful AI models to work more efficiently, discover insights faster, and produce higher quality work. The question isn't whether you should engage with Hotbot, but whether you're going to take advantage of this free, comprehensive platform or continue using outdated approaches. Second, Hotbot is most powerful when it handles the time-consuming organizational tasks that free you up for high-level thinking and analysis. Let Hotbot's AI models help you organize literature, identify patterns in data, and improve your writing clarity. Save your mental energy for the creative insights, novel arguments, and original interpretations that only human researchers can provide. Third, effective Hotbot use requires active engagement, not passive consumption. The most successful Hotbot-assisted research comes from researchers who know how to ask good questions, evaluate Hotbot's suggestions critically, and integrate Hotbot's insights with their own expertise. Hotbot is a tool that amplifies human intelligence, not a replacement for it. Now, here's what I want you to do right after watching this video. Go to hotbot.com. That's hotbot.com. You don't need to register, you don't need to provide a credit card, you don't need to sign up for any subscriptions. Just go there and start experimenting with Hotbot's multiple AI models and expert bots. Try uploading some of your current research materials and see how Hotbot can help organize and analyze them. Ask questions about your research area and see what insights emerge from different AI models available through Hotbot. Experiment with Hotbot's specialized expert bots like the Education Bot, Math and Statistics Bot, or Writing Assistant. Most importantly, Start developing your own sense of how Hotbot can best support your specific research workflow. Remember, the best way to understand Hotbot's potential is to use it on your own work. Start small. Maybe ask Hotbot to help organize some literature you've already collected, or to suggest improvements to a paragraph you've written. As you get comfortable with Hotbot's basic applications, you can gradually explore more sophisticated uses across its different AI models. The students and researchers who learn to work effectively with Hotbot today will have enormous advantages tomorrow. They'll be able to tackle more ambitious research questions, process larger data sets, and produce higher quality work in less time. Most importantly, they'll be prepared for an academic and professional landscape where Hotbot AI fluency is not optional, it's essential. Your success with Hotbot will depend on your ability to ask good questions, think critically about Hotbot's suggestions, and integrate Hotbot's assistance with your own knowledge and creativity. So take that first step today. Visit hotbot.com, start experimenting with its free AI models and expert bots, and begin developing the Hotbot-assisted research skills that will serve you throughout your academic and professional career. Your future self will thank you for starting this journey with Hotbot now, rather than waiting until AI literacy becomes a competitive necessity. The academic landscape is changing rapidly, and the researchers who thrive will be those who learn to harness Hotbot as a powerful research partner while maintaining their intellectual independence and ethical standards. That can be you, starting today with Hotbot. Thank you for spending this time with me exploring the future of academic research with Hotbot AI. Now, go make it happen at hotbot.com.